I know you wrote about this too. This is a topic that has really gone on for way too long at this point to still be in its infancy. The legislative session, as you know, passed in the Senate in the state of Illinois. The pilot bill that they had for more than just the Bears, that was for mega projects, does not pass. And I know Pro Football Talk posted the story about the mayor trying to have a plan for them to stay in town. What are your thoughts on all of this, both as a former attorney, as somebody who's observed many stadium discussions previously, and keeps an eye on the league as a whole?
Well, first of all, I was confused by the new Madden cover with Caleb Williams jumping over the Chicago skyline. Shouldn't that be the Hammond, Indiana skyline? But
Paul
really,
Pabst did that Photoshop. Paul is the producer for Dan Patrick,
wow.
so you
That's
got to
good.
check that out.
It shouldn't have been, because I go all the way back to the beginning. We want to build a new stadium. Where do we want to build it? Well, we want to build it on the lakefront. Okay, let's try to do it. Oh, we can't get to where we want to be. We need leverage. What's our leverage? Arlington Heights, that's our leverage to try to get the stadium in Chicago. So Arlington Heights becomes the alternative. That doesn't get anywhere. We need new leverage. Oh, how about Hammond, Indiana? I mean, once the Chiefs went from Missouri to Kansas, that opens a new way to try to get this process moving. And now that the legislative session in the spring has come and gone in Illinois with no viable alternative, I mean, we have seen moments in the life cycle of these conversations with Indiana where you would think if the Bears were serious, they would have said yes by now. I think Indiana has always been a leverage play. I think it's always been a bluff. I think Arlington Heights has always been a bluff. Now, I know they bought that property, but I think they want to be in Chicago. And some of the things that Brandon Johnson has said recently about conversations he's had with the team, talking terms with the team, the surface information that we get is never what's going on behind the scenes. And I think behind the scenes, the Bears would like to stay in Chicago if they can. They just know how difficult it's going to be. And that's what's resulted in this meandering and extended process to try to set it up. And maybe the end result of what's happened over the past few weeks, the Bears now have a chance to try to work something out to keep the new stadium in Chicago, where I believe it absolutely should be.
Mike, the issue I think about the Bears having Arlington Heights be a bluff is that they spent $200 million. And this is not a team that is cash rich. This is not a family that has oodles of cash to be able to spend like this. They have an appreciated asset, that's for sure. But to spend so much money on that, they claim it was about the taxes. They wanted a negotiable tax certainty concept. And that seems to still also very much be the case. You know, they issued a statement. We had the Hammond mayor on today. Indiana seems to think they're going to get an answer by the end of the month. I don't know if that's a soft deadline, but I feel like there are so many moving parts as to why, even if it is leverage, it's not done properly. And I don't know that they had the liquid to be able to do the leverage on the other side with the Arlington Heights property.
I think there's two explanations. I think there's either a method to the apparent madness that we've witnessed over the past several years, or it's just madness. And when you think about it, you buy this property at Arlington Heights and you don't buy it with an understanding of how you're going to handle the exorbitant property taxes. You're just going to figure that out as you go. So it is possible that all of this, and that the Bears have embraced the appearance that they don't really have a plan, when the reality is they've got a plan that is operating at a much higher level than their apparent plan. And that plan has a goal of building a stadium in Chicago. I don't know. I don't want to give them too much credit.
Yeah.
But if it ends up that they build a stadium in Chicago, they're geniuses. Whether it was deliberate or accidental, they're still geniuses.
No, I agree with that as we talk with Mike Florio, the creator and editor-in-chief of Pro Football Talk. Mike, so because we're having the mayor on today and we have so many questions, and we'll see how many he actually gives us a straight answer to. Just this idea that you're having the backdoor dealings, that makes it seem like the Bears either really do know what they're doing or they have no idea what they're doing. And that's what gives me pause. I think in this era, because we saw what happened with the Kansas City Chiefs, nobody wants to put this on the taxpayers. And that's my issue with this, is how are they going to put a stadium downtown where the taxpayers aren't going to be more on the hook? Remember, we're still on the hook for what happened with the renovations to Soldier Field.
More than $400 million.
Well, and let's be completely accurate about this. Nobody wants to put it on the taxpayers if putting it on the taxpayers means putting it on the ballot, because we know what happens when one of these measures gets put on a ballot. It loses miserably. That's what happened in Kansas City. They were riding 2 straight Super Bowl championships, and they couldn't get anywhere close to enough votes to extend an existing sales tax to renovate Arrowhead Stadium, or they never would have left for Kansas. But there are so many people within the electorate that don't care whether or not there's a football stadium in town. They don't fall for this argument that it's this civic pride and we make all this other money and we have to have it. Most people are going to say, pay for it yourself. That's the current mood. And so they'll try to put it on the taxpayers by working the back rooms, by working the politicians. That's how you make it happen. For whatever reason, the politicians are more concerned about being the ones who lose the team than they are getting blamed for doing a backroom deal that puts the bill on the taxpayers. Because that's how we see these deals get done. They're all backroom deals with politicians. They all circumvent the ballot box, and they all foist hundreds of millions, if not billions, on the taxpayers. That's how it happens. That's how it works. And the problem for the Bears is they're in a jurisdiction where they haven't been able to find sufficient political support to go ahead and use, to use the term that J.B. Pritzker said the other day, foist all that money onto the taxpayers. A lot of politicians will do it without batting an eye. The politicians in Illinois haven't been willing to go along with that yet.
No, they haven't. They maintained that they think that this is an issue where if they did add tax dollars to what is already a very taxed electorate, to say the least, that they would lose their jobs. And Brandon Johnson also created a plan where he talked about, it's a little bit like the 2024 plan, and we'll ask him about it, but talking about using the Illinois Sport Facility Authority taxing structure. But the issue is that's still a tax. You know, Mike, the other part of this is that I want to ask you about is the Bears very adamantly with the NFL after having the meeting that was on the schedule. Reporters all said the same thing, that Arlington Heights and Hammond were the only 2 sites. So if it is true that Kevin Warren was having these secret conversations, to dupe the league like this is also a very bad look.
Oh. Let's not assume the league wasn't in on this. Just do a little research on what happened with the Rams in St. Louis. When Stan Kroenke bought Hollywood Park in Inglewood, everyone mobilized to say, nothing to see here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. He didn't buy this to build a football stadium. That's ludicrous. And they lied and they lied and they lied and they left, and they ended up writing a check for $790 million when it was all said and done to St. Louis for the chronic lies. It gets back to teams saying we're not going to trade a player. Whatever it is, they say what they have to say. And I'm not passing judgment here. I'm just saying, let's not be naive about this. I doubt that the Bears have lied to the league. I think whatever plan the Bears have, the league knows about it. And if there's something going on with Chicago behind the scenes, the league has been aware of that from the get-go.
That would make it make more sense. But at the same time, this hasn't made sense.
The league office is very powerful, and it keeps getting more powerful. And the last thing you should do, if you're any of the 32 teams, is lie to the league office, because the last thing you want is the league office to have a bone to pick with you, because it will.
Mike, we'll see how this plays out. Again, I guess a soft deadline of sorts. June, the end of June is when people are thinking. The Bears have said they're going to let people know their plans in late spring, early summer. So we'll see how this all goes. I do have a question for you.
I don't buy it. Soft deadline isn't a deadline. The only deadline is a deadline.
Oh, no.
The clock is ticking. There isn't a ticking clock here.
No,
that's the problem. Right. There's no ticking clock.
And we're having to deal with it in all of its perpetuity, which it seems like it's going to be in for a while. I do want to know if you believe in the Madden curse or not, because Caleb Williams is now gracing the cover of the newest edition of Madden.
I think the whole idea of any type of curse, I remember the old Sports Illustrated jinx. If you're on the cover of Sports Illustrated, that means doom is right around the corner. That stuff isn't real, but if people allow it into their brains, then I think that in a roundabout way, it can become real because it creates doubt, and doubt isn't good. But if there ever was a Madden curse, I'd like to think that Patrick Mahomes erased it. He was on the cover of Madden 20 that came out in 2019. They won the Super Bowl that year. So look, it just underscores how hard it is to be the team that rises to the top and wins the Super Bowl. Every year is a fight. Every year, I don't want to say 32 teams because 10 to 12 of them you don't have to worry about, but there's 10 or 12 that are true contenders. And it comes down to crazy things like a 2-point conversion that looked like it was no good. And next thing you know, it is good. And that one moment can change everything. Little moments like that determine the fates of football teams. And it's frustrating when you think about it. If you're a fan, if you're somebody connected to the team, if your livelihood is riding on it, if your legacy depends on it, these games are decided, these championships are determined by the dumbest, flukiest things that no one can control. So that's the better explanation than that there's some curse to being the guy who's on the cover of a game. There isn't even a cover anymore. Nobody buys does anybody go to GameStop and buy no, they download it. Now, Caleb Williams is going to be all over the startup screen every time somebody turns it on, and it still is an honor, but I think it's meaningless. And I think Caleb Williams is sufficiently confident and self-aware to not look at that and think it's going to lead in any way to anything bad for him.
Well, Mike, as usual, this has been very informative and entertaining. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Have a great week.
That is Mike Florio, the creator and editor-in-chief of Pro Football Talk. Will no doubt continue to track the Bears story.